Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting for more people to join. Whilst you're waiting, please feel free to put your name and where you're joining us from today into the chat. We're admitting lots of people into the room, so we're just giving them a few more minutes to join. Okay, so we're just waiting to join. So if you already joined, yes, feel free to put your name and where you're joining us from into the chat. People are still joining us, so just going to give them a couple more minutes whilst we're just saying hello in the chat and saying where we're joining from. Okay, I think we'll make a start and we'll continue letting people in. So welcome everyone. Fantastic to see people joining from all over the place for this very, very special CMAS in Touch event. We're really happy to be able to host this celebration of 30 years for organization. I think in this dark times especially, it's wonderful to have actually something genuinely positive to celebrate, and this is one of those occasions, organization being one of the most fundamental critical institutions for our field, and not to mention that CMS in Touch owes its existence to organization, not only initial existence, but consistent, continuing existence as our sponsor, for which we're very grateful. And this is also a fantastic opportunity not only to celebrate the considerable contribution that has already been achieved over the last 30 years, but also to actually collectively help shape the future of the journal. So welcome everyone. It's fantastic to have you here. Just a couple of household points. We're actually using a Zoom meetings platform today rather than Zoom webinar platform. So it's going to be a lot more interactive than a lot of our other events. It will feel like that once we stop screen sharing. There'll be lots of discussion and you'll be able to use your cameras and voice. But do use the chat. So the chat is open. Do use the chat to make comments or post questions. We'll be using Padlet. We'll have breakout rooms, but I'll let, and we have plenty of time. We have 2 hours today to properly manage to get to the meat of some of the important issues. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Patricia to kick off the event. Over to you, Patricia.
Hi everybody. It's wonderful to see how many people registered and have actually joined, and I hope more will be joining long in the coming minutes. We are here for an important celebration. And the celebration is the 30 years of this journal. This is a nice birthday, and on this occasion we went back and looked at our history, and particularly warm welcome to Marta Calas, whom I see among the public. I don't know if there is anybody else of the original team starting the journal, but we are very happy that you joined, Marta. This was a journal that was launched 30 years ago with a very specific project, and a project of doing science in a different way, one that was more reflexive, curious, open, less compliant of the norms that are often imposed on social scientists and organizational scholars more specifically. And rereading that original editorial, I was really surprised, me with Marcus and Raphael, who are also here, of the language that was back then already used to, set out this project. And here you have some of the important terms that were used to describe it. Rereading that editorial, we felt that it was a strong start, and as a start that we still really feel attached to, and with which we feel a lot of continuity with the present project. But we also felt that it was time to start a conversation to how to bring the project forward in the coming decade and longer, and that we could do that perhaps not only with an anniversary special issue full of very rich and inspiring contributions, but also with a reflection on who we are as a community. Perhaps you can show the next slide, Munib. So this is an editorial and an editorial project, a scientific project, but we are also a community, and we would like to reflect with you, starting from this short editorial that we wrote and the special issue that was just published in November, a path in the coming months and in the coming year, actually, about what kind of difference do we want to make in the future. We have been making quite a big difference, we think, in the past 30 years, in our first 30 years, but we also think that we want to keep making that difference in the future, and that the way we do it might need to change to a certain extent, not completely. But we are very interested to start a conversation with you about what we could do differently also to keep making a difference in our community, for our readership, but also more broadly for the critical community of which we are part. And this will be the conversation today. I don't know if you had the opportunity to have a look at our editorial, but in that editorial, next to making a bit of a point of our environment and the field, we identified 3 organizing principles which we think should remain very central in our work, and which we wish to discuss with you. Maybe there are other principles that we forgot while writing. So we are also very curious to hear from you. What do you think of this principle, whether you identify and recognize them, but also if you miss something. And the first principle is the principle of, curating, but also protecting when it's under attack, a space, and in the first place, an intellectual space, but also a political space of epistemic pluralism. This was very, very prominent in the origins of the journals, and we feel that we are very committed to this principle, and that we would really like to strengthen it and to make it even more visible in our vision texts, but also in how we do science. And in this time, we are, of course, we welcome a lot of contribution from various perspectives and multiple traditions, but we feel also a specific commitment to make the type of scholarship we host and we curate and which we support, if anything, more radical and more explicit in terms of its ethics, its politics, and of course its theories and its types of knowledge that we embrace and develop and spread, and on which we build. We want to go beyond the canon, but not only beyond, but also against it sometimes. And we have tried to do so in many ways, and in ways that remind us of our freedom not to write for the use of capital of in any case hegemonic powers in society. We are no handmade science. Of course, we are part of management and organization studies as a broader disciplines, but this is really what distinguishes us and what we feel makes us unique, and where we should invest even in the future for the community to be able to develop work that is really not functional to management or any project of hegemony. Pluralism, of course, is an open-ended project, and we also want to stress that we want to keep it open-ended. It's something that should be curated, but also should be let grow from the community bottom up, and in the awareness that it's never finished and that it's a process that we actually undergo together, collective, and sometimes, individual, but to a certain extent always also collective. One of the big questions that we ask ourselves today is how do we keep curating and protecting this intellectual space of epistemic pluralism? And we will have time later on in this workshop to reflect on that with you in a more dialogical way in the breakout rooms in a facilitated conversation. And we want also to reach out to you today, but also in the coming months, to really touch base and hear from you. How do you see this space, and how do you believe we should be working to make it and to reproduce it, and also to protect it and preserve it when it's under attack? This is not a theoretical situation. Sometimes this space comes under attack, and we also have defended it. But we would like to exchange views with you on how to keep doing it in the future. Next slide. Yeah. So the second principle of organizing this community is one of inclusivity. We want to be a critical community. Of course, that's nothing new, but we want also very explicitly to be inclusive and to be transnational, to capture knowledge and wisdom and ideas and people and science and political projects that originate in many parts of the planet. And we want to be a community where the social norms we abide by are negotiated in a way that existing macro political, geopolitical inequalities, differences and inequalities, to a certain extent, are pushed in the background. This is, as we know, not an easy project. It's easy to commit to it in principle, but it's more difficult when you then want to practice this and want to create really a community that is less hierarchical and less dominated by some voices than by others. We are ourselves marked by all these inequalities in the way we live, in the way we think, in the way we act. And still, we believe that we are a very reflexive community and that we can really proactively work at this and counter these forces in a way that we not only become more aware, but that we operate in a way that counters them to a certain extent. And also on this part, which is a very, also to a certain extent, a practical part, we would like to really share ideas with you and to hear what you think should be done, how to do it, and also whether you want to commit to participate in the doing. We have, you probably are aware that we have been working very hard on the renewal of our associate editors teams, for example, to better reflect the diversity of this global community. And we have at times pledged to our values in our writings, in our editorials, in what we publish, of course, but also in our newsletter lately. We have made some first step about, for example, allowing other languages, abstracts in other languages to the journals. This is only starting. And we are trying to really consistently apply a first name policy where also the authors of the scholarship that gets referenced is visible. Perhaps the most important thing we have done in the past year is, as Alex mentioned in the beginning, supporting CMS in Touch, which is an initiative that started during the pandemic in collaboration with the CMS division of the Academy of Management, and where a whole group of colleagues have started providing a platform for the broader community for the scholarship we do, and to have seminar webinars to be in touch, to publicize, make things visible, etc. And this has been an enormous success for which we are enormously grateful in the first place to all the people that committed to that project, and we have supported it and we have believed in it, and we still do. We still sponsor it, and we still are here today organizing this through in the In Touch platform. There is, of course, more we can do, and we are very, very interested in hearing from you what you think could be, and also how can we make it feasible for everybody. As we know that every initiative is always quite labor intensive and requires commitment, and also needs to be carried in time and to have an effect in the medium and longer term. And maybe we can move to the third principle, and this is a very explicitly political principle of working out a project that is in the first place theoretical, but also political, and one of hope. And we know that as a community, it's as a critical community, it's particularly easy to get really disappointed and to get down by studying actually what doesn't work in our contemporary organizations and societies. But we want to be also a community where people get regenerated, supported, and that feel they can find back the strength to go back and keep investing in the work and keep investing in the change we would like to see happen. So we have been soliciting much more explicitly scholarship that really wants to envision alternative ways of organizing that are less marked by unequal power relations. And we have, in the tradition of the journal, further expanded the formats of the submissions we accept, introducing the media and artifacts review, for example, and expanding the book review sections. And in the coming 12 months, as Marcos will later explain, we will further work towards this project of this affirmative political project of hope through a manifesto for organization, a new vision for the future, a renewal of our mission and vision, and which will be launched in a year's time at our first virtual conference. Oh, sorry, there is a little bit of animation on these slides. So we have, as you have seen in November, published the commemorative special issue. I really invite you to read through it. In the first place, I think our associate editors have contributed to it on topics and issues that they think are very relevant. There is a lot of our favorite topics that really reflect the core of the journal. I will not mention specific contribution. You see them here, some keywords here. Perhaps with the exception of the last contribution by Alex Bristow, who reconstructed the origins of the journal in her contribution. So if you want to have a bit of an idea of the past of organization, how it originated and how it developed, I think you should start from there. And then please enjoy all these contributions. So we are more or less on time. We would like now to open the discussion for about 25 minutes on these 3 organizing principles. We would like to hear from you what you have to tell us about them, but also if you feel we are missing something important that we should take into the conversation. Then we'll have a few minutes where we'll assign people randomly into breakout rooms, where in smaller groups for about half an hour, 35 minutes, we would like you to discuss how you think these principles or anything else that is relevant could be actionable. What kind of actions you think we should consider as a journal and as a community to move forward and to make these principles actionable. Then we'll have about half an hour plenary discussion, rejoining the big room with our conversations. There will be a Padlet available to note down some of the ideas. And then we will close about 4 p.m. Continental time. Perhaps a last slide, the next slide about the rules of interaction in the breakout rooms. Yeah. Please be respectful of others. That's probably the main rule, and introduce yourself with your name and language and pronouns. And there will be a groups moderator, facilitator, which we have appointed, but also in the group, somebody should take notes in the Padlet, and a spokesperson should be appointed to link back to the plenary. And yeah, be nice to each other. I don't doubt that you will. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Patricia. Could you close the slides now, please? So we can see everyone, hopefully. Hi, so thank you, Patricia. Thank you, really, everyone to be there. So before we get to the actionable points, so the whole idea is that after we came to those, we did our best to come up with those things that we think like will direct our journal for the years to come and that represent our community. Now that we want to actually know how to make them work and know how to actually make them work. But before we get into that, and we want to, we learn over time, and I learned over time of how incredible our community is and how creative and how we can learn a lot from you. Before then, we actually get to the actionable points of how making those three principles, three ideas happen. We want to hear from you, first of all, if there are other things that we left out, and in those ideas, there are other elements that we didn't talk about. So this is the moment for, the first moment that we want to hear your voice. I think you want to make sure that the community has a voice. That's the whole point of this workshop, is actually to listen to your ideas. So the floor is open for you. So was there any other elements that we forgot, or any things on those elements that we proposed that we might add to have a more complete picture? So for you. Everyone on talk, just hold up your hands virtually, of course. Okay, so we have one. Yes, please, Anidi, how are you?
Marcus, hello, hello everyone. I think what I'm saying is actually redundant, but I just wanted to sort of generate a discussion. I wonder if what you listed as explicitly engage with different multiple organizational forms, including those that serve nonprofit and social goals. I mean, in the time I've been in the field, one of the shifts I've noticed is a dramatic shift away from just taking profit for granted, either in terms of in terms of corporate social responsibility, or in terms of recognizing NGOs and other kinds of organizational forms. And the second thing that I wanted to share, which may seem a little controversial, is to gesture towards the end of capitalism, either in terms of a pun, that is the end in terms of the goal of capitalism. What is its goal in the future? Are we looking towards a different kind of capitalism, or literally its end, the fact that we're in multiple crises in the planet, and so the capitalist model may not sustain itself in the future. So very simply, 2 points I wanted to raise. First, do we sufficiently engage with multiple forms of organization? And second, do we engage with prognosis or utopias where we're looking past capitalism to what will follow?
Great, thanks, Nidhi. Anyone want to add?
Ana Maria.
Hi, Anna.
Just to follow up what he have said, I think many of us have been working in alternative organizations for a long time and now become popular. And it's not only just our journal doing this, there are other journals. And so I think we need to pause and ask ourselves, what is different? And from my perspective, I see many people interested in community organizing, community-based enterprises and all that, but the political aspect still is our side. I think that's very, very important to go further into the political hope, as Patricia was mentioning. The other aspect that I think we need to consider is, I was reading the piece by Agnes, and I think we need to really reflect on that piece about our obsession with theoretical contribution. I think our journal still is in that, And so I think we need to reflect about that piece and what that means for us moving forward. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Angela?
Oh,
thank you. I was just giving support to the comments that were just made.
Okay, good.
Ismail wants
Ismail?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the button to raise the electronic hand, so I had to raise the real one. I guess, I mean, maybe chiming on what has just been said in terms of practical things that we can do or that we can continue to do. I was thinking of trying to get on board maybe connections with colleagues who are based in third world institutions. So I'm not only talking about the origins of the family name or of the ancestry, although these are relevant because they tend to form different sensitivities, but I'm talking about even more radically, trying to make our journal as accessible as possible to colleagues who are based in universities of the third world. And I know that a number of initiatives have already been started and accelerated under the directorship or the leadership of Patricia and Marcos. But this summer, I was really impressed when I visited the Philippines because I wasn't sure whether the sociology I would find would be colonial or post-colonial. And actually, it was perhaps even something else, or perhaps something post-colonial that might be on the fringe of getting elsewhere. How would I distinguish these categories? Well, for the sake of the discussion, I would say colonial sociology would have meant very roughly, very brutally, that they are not allowed to create their own concepts, but they are allowed to use the concepts developed in the past in the global north to explain problems of local interest. Yeah, so that would have been colonial sociology. Post-colonial sociology would have meant also that they're allowed to create concepts, but only concepts of local interest. Yeah, but however, the framework, especially the social theory that has interested many of us for decades, the social theory still comes from the global north. Even someone like Roy Bhaskar, who had an imaginary that was not only northern, was still educated in Oxford, and then followed in Cambridge. And so basically, when I met these researchers in the Philippines, and I'm going to finish here my speech, it's that I was impressed by the maturity of the sociology that I could see there. And I was impressed to see people who are not capable only, or they do it very well, of talking about local problems using the concepts developed in the West. But my impression is that maybe now, and our journal could really be a splendid vector for this, about co-creating with them or discussing with them or encouraging them without much discussion with us apart from these encouraging discussions. I don't know exactly what the formula will be. It will probably vary a lot from one project to another, but basically creating links to and using our journal as a vector, not only to get papers about problems that happen in the global south, but also for theory development and theoretical contributions that are developed with within an imaginary that has been profoundly hybridized and by the South. Yeah, so I was wondering whether perhaps some of you have thought about similar matters, whether you have reached different conclusions, but this in practice, it could be mobilized in terms of our paper development workshops by really gearing these in terms of collaborative theory development, for instance.
Yeah. Perfect, Smile. Thank you very much. Totally agree with that. We'll open. I'll try to talk as least possible because I want to hear from you. So, Carl, you have your raise your hand. Yeah.
Hey. Thanks for the seminar. So, very encouraging, insightful comments, discussion. So, I just some quick thought, share with you as kind of one is that what CMS, what we are doing sort of is like intellectual battle, and it's kind of uphill intellectual battle. And the intellectual battle itself is about developing good and better ideas. So I felt like I fully agree, like what the editors, all the key points, but we might have a more explicit intention of raising the stature of CMS, a journal. Only like the stature, like the visibility, like of the field is raised. Like the field can be continually, like in a better position. So we need more people, to join the camp. So I felt because we're not alone. We are competing. so I felt this point is kind of important. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Well, we want to hear from you. Just make sure that those. So we agree totally with you on in terms of the activism part. That's one of the things that we want to push forward. How we can help, how we can collaborate, how we can help create those vocabularies of practice that actually motive for change. And totally agree with Ismail about we had this experience of talking with this African business development community, and the whole point was to having them bringing their own theories, their own intellectual traditions to the journal. So Juliana, yeah, welcome.
Hello everyone, thank you. Just was thinking, I mean, I welcome the objectives or the proposal that you're putting in, but I was wondering if there is a way, that make ourselves in an uncomfortable position, So for example, when we do the CMS in touch seminars, can we not open it up to do it in another language? And I know the articles, they are all basically written, we need to write it in English, and English is my second language. I'm from Argentina, and and this cut, sometimes it's much better to express your ideas in your own language, as I'm sure everyone knows this. But I was thinking, how can we build this little by little? And I was thinking maybe even when we do this kind of events, to try to do it in more than one language, because with that we also are showing some dominance, that there is English who dominates everything, So if there is a way to making us feel a bit more uncomfortable and try to welcome other languages, and even if we don't understand them, just to make it there to see how the other feel when listening all in English.
Thank you, Juliana. So two comments to that really quick. One is that we recently just published our first review of a foreign language book. So Italian book has been reviewed in our journal, and we wanted to do more of that. So Aaron is here, and he helped us make this happen. The second thing is, so we're going to talk about next year's conference. We're going to give a little more information about this conference. But one of the things that we wanted to do in this conference, and we invite you, Juliana, to help us do that, is actually to have different sessions that could be in different language. That could be for different communities, that they create their own session in Arab, and in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Italian. So whatever language, in Korean, whatever language they wanted to develop a session, they could do that. So that we want to use the next year's conference as the space of creating these alternatives. So yeah, Juliana, if you want to participate, you'll be more than welcome.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but also these small steps, perhaps too small, but we are making some steps. One is the abstract in another language. So please do make use of this opportunity. And also this idea of reviewing materials, and also not only books, also the artifacts, of course, from other languages, in other codes. There's also something that could help at least make the first bridge to the community, because then you open up number of authors that have not been translated yet. And so you bring in the whole knowledge production that is happening elsewhere, as Ismail was saying. And this is a very important first step, we think, to really broaden the conversation. And also, and I want to touch back to on what Ana Maria was saying about, the obsession of of the theoretical contribution. To a certain extent, I think the theoretical contribution is not in itself necessarily always the problem. The problem is to what do you contribute? And if the baseline conversation is a very much a hegemonic conversation that emerges from a specific locality instead of multiple conversations, I think that is what is really problematic, more than trying to develop a new theoretical insight. It is to which background do you benchmark that conversation, and that really locks us in the reproduction of certain unequal relations. So it's difficult to envision a space that is structured completely differently because we are within some practices. We also need to keep communicating with each other, and that's the double and the paradox of English, which is kind of constrains us, but it's many times also the only way to have a broader conversation beyond our locality. But how can we kind of a bit erode the hegemony and make it a little bit more an equal ground?
So thank you, Patrice. So to keep up with that, so we have one last comment before we break out. So Divya, hi.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much. This is very, very encouraging. I had two questions, actually, not a comment. I think one, just building on the last point around the hegemony of the language, so to speak, the language practice. I want to go back to Anna Maria's point about, how do we kind of bring praxis in when we have these conversations. And a specific question is, what kind of support do we have for early career researchers who want to do things differently, and yet, have to kind of meet the benchmarks or the requirements of the standard. Like, for example, I have a probation agreement to clear or respond to. So how does one, what kind of support is available in the community for us to access? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Raza?
Yeah, I wanted to make a very small editorial point. Very small editorial point I wanted to make, which is that, we are part of the academy, and I have at least noticed that the academy over the last 10 years has turned a little rightward. So while we are hanging in there, our we are even more the distance distance in terms of praxis, ideology, and philosophy a little increased. And that is a matter of, that is a strategic matter for the editors to consider. Our journal serves several functions, one of which is also to advance the careers of those who publish in it. So to that extent, when the journal was started, Marta is here, it tapped into a deep thirst for this sort of thing that was there. And that thirst remains, but it has also done a tremendous amount of work in this regard, that it is, it helps people get hired, it helps people keep their jobs, it helps people get promoted. So that, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, has to be part of our calculus. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
And more important than that, we helped critical people get hired. People get their jobs. Yeah, perfect. So, Divya, thank you for your comment. Sorry.
Marcos, yes? I think Emra wanted to say something.
Okay, sorry, Emra,
very briefly. Last thing.
No, I have already put it in the chat box. It was not something substantial, so just some news. Thank you.
Okay. So, Divya, so the last thing before we go into the break. So we are trying really to find formats to support early year academics, even PhD students. So this is a project that we have. And we would love to hear, this is, I do the segue, really what we can do in practice, your ideas in general, the whole community, so we can do in practice actually to make this happen, to reach out to the new communities, and also one of those committees will be the early career scholars and the PhD students. Thank you very much for you. Remember that this is just one moment in time that we are having this conversation, but we are open for your feedback. Every time you want to talk to us, your ideas, please feel really free and feel at ease to contact us, contact anyone from the journal with your ideas, with your propositions. We really want to make sure that we hear the community as much as we can, because we know we're going to be stronger for it. So the second part of this meeting starts now. So we're going to jump into those work group breakout rooms where we can talk about the actionable policies, or what we can do in practice to make those things that we're talking about a reality. So we'll see you soon in the breakout rooms.
Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms now. You will see a link that says join the room. If you don't jump automatically, if you have any problem, please put a message on the chat or send me a message so I can move you to the room. So rooms are open now. You will see also messages on the room with the timekeeping.
Marcus, you're on mute.
Marcus, you're muted.
There you go. Sorry about that. So everyone, hi, thank you for coming back. So we want to take this last final part for this panel discussion. So I imagine that you had some really interesting conversations, and we want to hear from you. So we have 8 different groups, if I'm not mistaken, and we have around a half an hour to talk about everything that's been discussed. So we want to, each of the groups, have one person that can bring 2, 3 things, quick things that you can talk about what was discussed and the main ideas, the main actionable ideas. Can we start with the group from Gazal? Yeah.
Hi. Yes, Marcos, you caught me. I was supposed to share. I was supposed to share my notes with Divya. Divya, do you want to start? And then, if from what you remember, and then I'll.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, so we had a very interesting conversation, because I think one of the first points raised was around how do we really have a conversation as a journal in terms of what was missing with the mainstream hegemonic institution of rankings and matrices. Because for all of us to remain relevant where we are and to sustain the jobs, and we had one colleague amongst us who's actually in Brazil, and yet they are facing the pressures, which it kickstarted a very interesting reflection about, we do not want to be a part of it. That's the whole idea, and some experiences around how that propagates the caste system. So the open question there was, we didn't have a solution, as you can imagine, or an actionable point. But one thought there was that, something for us to reflect is, how do we want to engage with that or not? And what do we want to do? Do we want to have that in our broader objectives as a journal, as a community? So that was an open point. I think the another point which was discussed was around the inclusive and caring community, and there was one suggestion which resonated, which was around having a specific section, if possible, which encourages and gives spaces to ECR. So this was something which I shared, that I understand that regional studies, which is in a different discipline, really encouraged ECRs by actually helping them publish in the mainstream journal. So that would be, I think, a very, very helpful thing, if we can think about something like this. And on the similar lines, this triggered another actionable point, which was around the first. I'm forgetting the first question that we have, the epistemic pluralism, that maybe to encourage that, we have a section, maybe on the lines of speaking out or something different, which encourages semi-articles, where people can, share those ideas and have those conversations, and then convert them into I would say, full piece, manuscript. So that was another action point. I think that does capture most of the points, Ghazal. If I've kind of missed out on anything, please do add.
Yes, no, that was great. One thing, and I think CMS in Touch kind of comes in here, was the idea that we should have regular workshops to be more inclusive of all career stages, as well as that transnationalism that Patricia talked about, because in certain parts of the world we frame our problems and our politics differently. And so what ways can we make it easier to come together using the platform of organization? And so I see Alex nodding, so CMS Touch hat on. And I think one last point was about widening the epistemology and how we could do that, and whether that was, I think it was mentioned, Abdulhaji mentioned that it's a chicken and an egg. How does the journal encourage a paradigm shift?
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Ghazal. Thank you, Divya. So it's just a reminder, remember to put all of those points into the whiteboard. I forgot the name of the whiteboard now, that we gave to you, so we can have this later. It doesn't have to be beautiful, just put that so we can really have all those points to be discussed later. So we had a group with Alexander Bristol. Who wants to talk?
Sorry, is it me,
Yes.
Marcus?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, so we got Daniel, who's currently agreed to feedback.
Yeah, I'll try to sum up what we have discussed. It was myself, Alex, Alison, David, Marta, and so we thought basically in three points. We discussed the 3 points. Try to summarize them. The first one was that we could think of an initiative inspired by what Journal of Business Ethics does at the moment with the development editors. They identify submissions that are unlikely to be positively reviewed, but focus on underrepresented issues or authors that come from the Global South. And they assign these special development editors to support the process along the way. And certainly, all editors should be developmental, but in practice, having a dedicated role help this coming true. So that's one initiative we thought should be looked at with care. The second point was a new section of the journal that explores the description of on-the-ground experiments that demonstrate the possibilities of social action and social change. This may be similar to the connection section, someone said. And on the same vein, it's important also to increase awareness to what happens outside the academia, obviously. The third point was that there are places like the US where being critical has really become a challenge. We have really been marginalized. New scholars are not being trained to be critical at all. So the decline of our division in the academy is an indicator of that, and we should be concerned about our institutional representation. The problem of this underrepresentation becomes clear, for example, when we don't have the means to defend critical scholars against the persecution they suffer in certain institutions, as the Protect Academic Freedom Seminar series has largely demonstrated, and it's very important to engage with that for those that haven't yet. I recommend it. So it is also our thought, someone said, that under institutional representation happens because when we fight ourselves, when we are confronted with structures with inequality, such as patriarchy, that forces us to position ourselves to create internal divisions, or also political internal divisions, such as AOM CMS and ICMS, that makes us weaker. So in this context, the role of the journal should be central, and initiatives like CMS in Touch have been praised, but we should also think of others, including ways to support the growth of CMS membership, both the Academy and ICMS, improve collaborations, and focus on the training of doctoral students. We also talked a lot about the community of reviewers, but I won't mention this topic because I know other groups in breakout rooms have discussed that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Daniel. So Patricia, who was the person in your group to talk about what was discussed?
I think there were two people that perhaps will say something, Kate and Karazak. or Charzad, I don't know.
Yes, I can do it. We had an interesting conversation, but two main points were discussed. The first one is how we probably need to bridge more with other disciplines, and this is not something new, but this is something that we could improve and maybe invite scholars from other fields to contribute to the journal on a regular basis, on a more systematic basis. And these can be from other disciplines, but obviously it has to be also, it has to be part of that decentering that a process that we advocate for. So it could be people who are based in the global South, etc. So that's the first point. We also talked about format and role of reviewers. And the need to, in a way, educate reviewers about a little bit more about these initiatives that we want to put in place. And one thing Patricia was saying is that we could have, and also I think Sibel in our group also mentioned that we could have small videos, we could have more interactive ways of introducing reviewers to new formats and of getting new formats out there. Not only on the organization website, but also when we co-edit special issues, for example, the co-editors could have small videos here and there to explain. If they want to introduce new formats or new ideas, then they might have to explain that more, because we notice that there's a big gap between what we discuss here and the reaction of some reviewers when it comes to reviewing. So in other words, there's a huge gap, and this is a point that we discussed, between the way people review, which is still very traditional and sometimes very conservative and sometimes really doing some gatekeeping, and the discourse of openness that we can find in meetings such as this one. So our hope is that first ourselves as reviewers, we take this responsibility of applying it to ourselves, but also there are ways to involve more early career researchers in that, and to do more work along those lines. We had a few other reflections on implementation and more concrete ways to do that, but I don't know if Patricia or anyone who's if I missed anything. Yes.
Kate or Richard, do you want to add anything?
I mean, it was just really also to say that Patricia Marcus, has been incredible innovations already in the journal in the last couple of years. Implementing them in a good, solid way is going to be a big labor, you know, and communicating all the new formats and making sure everyone's up to speed. That in itself will be a huge achievement, to sort of take the new achievements and the visions and get them working. So rather than always adding in new stuff just to get the existing plans in place, as we're always telling our students, implementation is the tough part. So yeah, I think that's key.
Okay, well, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Shahzad. This is why we need you, in a way. That's why we wait, anything that you can come to help us and come to participate with us, making those changes will be extremely welcome. Rafael.
Yes.
Yes.
Charlotte is going to be our spokesperson.
Okay.
Yes, so I took lots of notes from our very lively discussion about how we so definitely support strongly support the principles, and how we think that, we talked a lot about how we can walk the talk, how we can do better, how we are, we can do what we're doing better in many ways, especially in these times where we feel that there is outside a sense of lack of urgency in facing, all these emergencies on our globe. And we know a lot about these emergencies. So we really need to survive to get our knowledge out there. So we were talking about how we need to talk more about our survival strategies for critical scholars in view of the pressures that we're under, and they're not diminishing. And also, how do we socialize to the principles, these principles of organization? How can we improve our practices? And well, we've already heard from the other groups, how the whole process of reviewing, how can we support ourselves together and create a good community of reviewers? How can we mentor each other with workshops and what have you, other ideas? So we were talking a lot about that. So yeah, how can we create this space for critical work with these survival strategies, and how can we do what we're doing in the journal better? And we need to discuss that and talk more about it in different forms, both in writing, but also in this format. So, of course, I can't summarize everything, but maybe if anyone else in the group wants to add something that I missed out on or didn't emphasize enough.
Okay, so thank you, Shell. Thank you very much for that. So let's have the group with Suhaib.
Yes, thank you. Ismail is going to speak for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I was in the group with Jana, Juliana, Metin, Nidhi, and Suhaib. We mentioned practices that organization has been doing quite distinctly and that we want to pursue. Then we have talked about emergent practices that we want to call for. And then we ended up with a call to arms. All this in under 3 minutes, I promise. Practices that we want to pursue, we feel that our journal is distinctive because we recast organizational phenomena. Well, many journals study organizational phenomena, but what our journal does really very distinctly is that we always recast them in their social and historical context. So for example, we're not, everyone studies technology, but we are interested in technology in relation to its context of production, consumption, etc. And similarly, along the similar vein, also on the cultural side, we are eminently aware of where our ideas came from in the first place, politically and historically, or at least we try to be aware of that. So we try to keep that awareness. And so these are two practices that we wish to pursue, but also that inspire us emergent practices. The first among the emergent practices really is about fostering a degrowth imaginary. Up until now, the vast majority of management studies, management thinking, has been based on an imaginary of eternal growth. This is a real challenge for us and to which we want to call. The second emergent practice that we have noticed is that as associate editors, we seem to receive more and more pseudo-critical papers. So these are papers that address a theme that is uncommon, but they also leave us a strange impression. We were wondering, where does that strange impression come from? Maybe because the paper is too normal. Maybe because it's not sufficiently abnormal in the Kuhnian sense of allowing the reader to question the paradigm through which the thoughts are articulated. So these are two ideas that we want to suggest for the future, fostering a degrowth imaginary and resisting pseudo-critical papers. There is a call to arms. I mean, taking stock of everything we have said, it means that organization or journal should perhaps take a clear stance about settler colonialism. The latter has been exceedingly influential on both mainstream and critical management studies. So it's not only a matter of decolonizing mainstream management studies from settler imaginaries and settler colonialism. But it's perhaps also a matter of questioning our own critical thinking and our own the ideas and the corpuses of ideas that we mobilize when thinking critically. Perhaps we also need to look at the settler roots and the other roots in settler colonialism.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Smell. On point.
And the image, we've added an image on the pad, and you can recognize Gaza in 2023, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, put everything you have on Padlet, which is a lot of food for thought, and we thank you very, very much. So Emra.
Hi, Jen has kindly taken some notes for us.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I guess 3 points we dug into, particularly in our group. First of all, we spent a lot of time on the principle around politics of hope. And again, echoing what Daniel was saying earlier from their group, proposing that we push a little bit more on a section that would very much focus on empirical cases, maybe shorter case studies of 3 to 4 pages. We're aware, obviously, that there's overlap here with the connections and acting up sections, but it seems like there's a tendency to focus still on the theory and the abstraction, and maybe we need space in the journal to focus really very much on these empirical case studies in affirming things that are already happening in the field. And maybe in relation to this, we were talking about the political role of organization in the field of critical journals, and thinking about how organization differs from, for instance, ephemera, and talking about how maybe we need to think about how we can maintain and strategically leverage our position as a critical journal that can nevertheless be used for scholars' institutional legitimacy. So how do we kind of hang on to that while also maintaining organizations' political backbone? And how does that connect to this question of opening up to more interesting and expansive forms of articles and different types of authors as well? So maybe enhancing things that are already going on in the journal in terms of co-authoring with practitioners and activists, not just limiting to academics. And then some points on the inclusive and caring principle. We talked about hosting more paper development workshops with people in the Global South, kind of cultivating the existing critical epistemologies and ontologies coming from these backgrounds, and using our institutional legitimacy as a way of letting new scholars know that a career can be made through critical research, and so allowing that to develop. I think, again, echoing things that have been said by other groups. And then finally, Sverre had a point about continuing to push for open access, but maybe alongside the inside legitimate track on pushing for open access, also making use of other avenues that we have. For instance, having a community on ResearchGate where especially people without institutional access to the journal can nevertheless get access and know that they can reliably have access informally, person to person. I think those are the main things that we covered, but if anybody else wants to jump in, please.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So from our group, and as the person that helped to organize this, I was, of course, the one that forgot to ask the people in my group who wanted to talk about this. Catherine, Emanuela, Carlos, Clemens. So I'll just say a few things and you please jump in and add to what we discussed. So we had a lot of interesting stuff. So one of the things that we said, so we talk a lot about activism, is that we said, so how we can actually show how our paper can help activism. So one of the things that we suggest is, so this is already not only what we write, but what our article does. So how we can create sessions or specific elements where we can say, okay, how this can contribute, who is this related to? So make our article be more, close to, or show what exactly are we contributing to and how we can help people outside of our own space. So there's a really nice debate. So we talk about bringing new epistemologies, and there's this whole idea of be careful with the whole enter the conversation. So how we can maintain a more open space for other epistemologies that don't necessarily have to relate to what we already have. So to avoid their own previous knowledge kind of colonize things that are coming to the journal. So how we can try to avoid this happening. And a last thing is about, so we were recommended talking about also language and how language can be a barrier. So we suggested how we can use different modes of expression. So how videos and other things can be a part of the journal. And we were talking about how we can, considering Raza's point of how citations matter for a lot of our young scholars, how we can make those alternative expressions citable. So in a way that can be part of the conversation again. So Emanuela, Carlos, sorry, do you have anything, Kate, Catherine, or Clemens to add? Attila too?
I think it was just to perhaps put the emphasis on the journal article being the conversation starter, not necessarily the end product for us. So I think it was just Emanuela's point about, what does it do? So foregrounding that, bringing that to the start, this is the intention, this is the aspiration for this piece, this is what we want it to do, and kind of leading on that. It's a conversation starter, and then maybe thinking about opportunities for kind of webinars or videos or communities that could kind of come out of the paper. So the paper's not the end goal, it's the conversation starter.
Yeah, indeed. And another point we discussed is thank you so much, Marcos and Catherine, for summarizing these points, and to go a bit further, indeed, what the contribution does, not only what the contribution is. How can we bring these contributions in the classroom to also educate differently new generations of PhD students, and also, ask ourselves these questions in the way that we engage with that scholarship, not just critiquing what others do, but also turning that gaze to ourselves as well, I think is an important aspect. And I think we also discussed about the need to, for us as academics, to go and engage with communities, because we speak very much about interdisciplinary work and how can we really bring other communities in the journal, but also what about the journal going to other communities to try to make that link a bit more, a bit smoother to facilitate these connections.
Okay, so thank you. Did I forget any group? Sorry if I did. Is there anyone who haven't talked yet? No, are we good? Good, so thank you all very much. So for there's so many food for thought. So we just wanted to finish up with a couple of announcements, great announcements, important announcements. So could you put the last the previous to last slide? Yes, this one. So so you wanted to talk about the conference. So we have a date. So please save the date. So it's the week of December 19th, 2024. So we're going to have a hybrid format. So we initially thought about doing the unconference. So we were going to do the unconference, a really a discussion of ideas, many formats, many languages, different stuff, try to be more exploratory. But we also understand, like Raza said, that a lot of people depend on like feedback, particularly young scholars. So we were going to have like a more traditional part of the conference where those papers can receive feedback. And we expect to send the call mid-Jan, so be on the lookout. So the call for contributions will be open in mid-January 2024. And last but not least, so last slide, So we have a gift for you. So we actually have a special section, open access section that we created commemorating the organization 30 years. So we put like 6 topics that we thought were the forefront in the last 10 years: activism, global issues, climate change, environment, food systems, the liberal colonial university, work, violence, war, and settler colonialism. So we have around more than 40 papers were negotiated with SAGE to be open access. So all of them are there open access. So you have the QR code that you can use to have access to those papers, but you have also the link is under like 2 or 3 hypertext links, but you can have a direct connection for this. So meanwhile, thank you very much. I think this will be one of many conversations with community that we want to have. And thank you for being there. Patricia, you want to say something to conclude?
I would like to thank everybody for really being here and, sharing and giving your 2 cents. We are going to take them very seriously. This is the start of a process that will last a whole year, in which we'll build up and we'll operationalize a couple of things, but also work at this manifesto. And hopefully in a year's time, we'll be even more numerous together at the virtual conference. So thank you so much.
I believe it's now over to me, right?
Yes.
To close. You're ready to close? Great. Munib, thank you for. First of all, thanks very much, Patricia, Marcos, and everyone else for letting us be part of this event. It's been a real honor, and I hope it will. The conversations have been amazing, and everybody who's contributed really has contributed excellent points. The Padlet will remain up, so as a continuing resource. If you remember some points, you can still add them. But thanks all very much for participating and for organizing this event. So if you enjoyed this event, if you and you'd like to attend more of CMS in Touch events, we have quite a few forthcoming, and these are the next 2. The next one is very soon on the 13th of December, and it's going to be about a special issue in the Journal of Management History on critical biography, which promises to be really interesting and fascinating. So QR code for you there, but you can also sign up to it on our Eventbrite page. The one after is in January, 23rd of January, and it's about being and becoming an associate editor, strategies and learning. So a really good opportunity to get involved if you're thinking of becoming an associate editor, and that's a really great way of actually helping to shape critical work. Then this I'd really encourage you to attend. Or if you'd like to share your wisdom of having been or being an associate editor, equally, I think that's important and really connects to some of the issues we were discussing today. So yes, do sign up to our subsequent events. More will be announced in due course. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel. You can also watch our whole archive of our past events. I think there are over 30 now, so they all remain there, including how to publish an organization, which is now a couple of years old. And if you have ideas for future CMS in Touch events that you'd like us to organize, then please get in touch with us via email. We've simplified the process, so you just need to drop us an email and we'll take it from there. And you can follow us on Twitter. Still saying Twitter as resistance rather than the X. So yes, thank you very much for attending, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Take care and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very much, CMS in Touch team. Excellent collaboration. Thank you.